Well, welcome back, guys. Monday night, AFU. We have a small panel tonight. We've had a few unfortunate dropouts, but that doesn't make it any less interesting because I have got John and I've got Marcus here, so they're going to help me talk about the fun topic that is VAR, because everybody's hot up on this topic at the minute. After this weekend, they've done nothing but hear about it on Sky Sports News and on TalkSport and all the other nice avenues that you can hear football news on. So, we're going to talk about some of the incidents that have got taken place over this weekend, some major ones. And it's like anything else, you're waiting for a bus and all of a sudden two come at once. And in this regard, in terms of VAR, it seems like 6 or 7 have come all at once in terms of bad decisions. So we're going to chat about them. We're going to get our views on whether we felt they were the right decision. I'm sure we'll probably mostly agree on most of the decisions today, especially one that involved Man United yesterday. So we'll, without any further ado, we will come to John on VAR as a whole. John, in terms of, let's be honest, it's not a very popular subject. There's a lot of fans who want to scrap it. It ain't going to get scrapped. Let's be honest. There's too much investment that's gone into VAR, and the way that the game's going, the way that life's going in general with technology, it's not going to get scrapped. But what do you think in general? What's your feelings on VAR, first of all, mate? What's your general thoughts?
My general thoughts on VAR, it takes time out of the game. There's periods where you have to wait sometimes up to 5 minutes for a decision to be made. It can be ridiculous. It can take time out of the game. And I think there's not always, I think, United Scran in particular, fans aren't allowed to see what's happening. Say like when there's a rugby match, there's a big screen on and you can see and the referee's asking the question, can I deny this try kind of thing. And I just think the only thing you hear from, like when there is a VAR check is that it's gone to a VAR decision, but you never hear any conversation. The fans in the ground aren't allowed to see what's being looked at. And I just think it's not anything that isn't allowing the fans to engage with. I'm not saying in terms of putting pressure on the decision, but fans deserve the right to see what's actually happening and that kind of thing. And I just think that, again, VAR this weekend, obviously we benefited from, the foul on Eriksen. I think it was one of the few good decisions this week. I know it's soft, but, you come through the back of the player and I do think it should be a foul. I think that's one of the rare times it has worked well this weekend. But you look at things like, Villa being denied a winning goal against City, West Ham being denied an equaliser at Chelsea. I think your real problem with VAR is even if you do scrap it, it'll come back to question the standard of the officiating, which I think is a much bigger problem in the game rather than VAR in that, because VAR is subjective. Sometimes it'll be given, sometimes it won't. It's frustrating, but I think the standard of refereeing and officiating probably is the much bigger problem. And until we improve that, then nothing will improve, even if you did get rid of VAR.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just coming to Marcus there. And what's your general views on it, Marcus? And just from what John said there, do you think, I think you kind of alluded to this, John, and, apologies if I'm kind of putting words in your mouth, mate, but the ref's job's becoming a little easier. Is that right, fair to say? Do you think that's where we're leading to with this, where referees are finding it too easy now to run to a monitor rather than sort of make a decision? If you look at the, I think it was the not the Villa goal, sorry, it was a West Ham goal, wasn't it? Where I felt, and I think they went on to Sky afterwards, and I forget the referee's name now, but he pretty much said, look, he had a perfect view of that challenge. It wasn't a foul on the keeper, and he sort of looked at the guy scoring the goal as well. I think it was Cornet, wasn't it? He looked at Cornet straight away. He didn't even sort of observe what the keeper. He observed Mendy on the floor. He sort of went straight to so almost in his back of his mind, he was thinking that was a fair challenge, no foul, straight onto to Cornet. Obviously, until he went to the monitor, then changed his decision. But what's your general feeling on that, Marcus? And like I say, do you think the refs' jobs have become a little Are they becoming a little lazy at what they're doing at the minute?
Yeah, perhaps. I think referees have definitely become a little bit more hesitant to make big decisions because of VAR. But at the same time, I think that referees have become under a lot more scrutiny since the inception of VAR because I mean, listen, I was a kid and I wasn't really watching football as attentively as I do now, but I don't remember people talking about refereeing decisions as much as they do now. It seems like now, whenever there's a bad decision or an inconsistency, it's like a big thing that gets drawn out for the whole next week. And it's like you see it this weekend. People are talking about VAR decisions when actually the Manchester United versus Arsenal game is probably one of the most entertaining Arsenal versus Manchester United games we've seen in a long, long, long time, you know? So that just tells you the impact of VAR. I personally think that there's two issues at play here. One is the one that John touched on, and that is like the bigger problem with officiating. Because if you remove VAR, right? Yes, the game flows a lot better. Yes, you don't have this, this situation where you can't celebrate a goal, etc., etc. But you will still get terrible refereeing decisions, and those refereeing decisions will never get overturned. And so, even though people hate on VAR, it has brought a little bit of good in the sense that the main purpose of VAR is to review decisions and make sure the correct decision is made. Now, obviously, that doesn't happen because of a lack of consistency, but that's an issue with the rules, not VAR itself. That's an issue with the people who are making these decisions. And for me, like one of the silliest things about VAR is the whole clear and obvious thing, because that's subjective. Rules in a game, in an elite level sport, should never be subjective. There should be a clear definition of what is a foul, what is not a foul, what is an offside, what is not an offside. And once you have that, then you don't have this gray area of, oh, was it too soft, or oh, was this, I feel like there's just too many gray areas with VAR and the rules in football at the moment.
You're 100% right. And ultimately, somebody's got to make a decision, haven't they? Somebody's got to make a decision.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we're looking at that disallowed goal from the Chelsea game again. I'll talk about that incident. That incident, the referee initially thought that was a legitimate goal until the VAR system told him to look at the monitor. Now, we know more times than not that when they go to the monitor, there's going to be a possible change of decision. Which is poor. And I don't agree with that either. I think that should be a case of, if the referee is in doubt, there's any element of doubt, any reasonable amount of doubt in his mind that he's not comfortable even with the monitor, then he should resort to his previous decision. And in that situation there, that he's almost gone with the TV decision, the VAR decision, because it kind of gets him out of jail in a certain sort of way, the referee, because he can resort to that. Well, I thought it was a goal, but then VAR told me to overturn it almost, and it's kind of passing the blame, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing, though. There's a lack of accountability with VAR because, like, a lot of people are attacking the referees, and I personally don't think the officiating in the Premier League is that good, anyways. But I think there is a little bit of an over scrutiny on referees because at the end of the day, like, what about the people who are actually sitting behind the computer screens? A lot of fans have called for transparency, and it's absolutely necessary. The problem is we will never unite as fans, as rival fans, because a lot of football fans are very biased, and when a decision goes against them, then they start moaning, oh, VAR this, VAR that. But then as soon as the decision goes in their way, they're all quiet, they're all happy, they're all down, at the pub with their mates celebrating, and they don't give a toss about the fact that the decision hasn't been given correctly. So I think the only way we would see change, apart from if the players and managers did something, is if fans united and actually called out the rubbish that is VAR. Because I almost, and this is a bit of a conspiracy theory, so don't take me too seriously, but I almost feel like the Premier League enjoys a bit of controversy because it generates conversation, and they're almost willing to let these things slide, and almost like they wanted to be a part of the game. Because pre-VAR, there was no overturning decisions. If a controversial decision was made, that was it. And then the next Monday morning, that decision would be highlighted. It would have its own segment within the show. It wouldn't be as overly focused as it is now, I don't think, but there was still a conversation about it. I can't remember what exactly happened because obviously I was very young at the time, but there was a controversial decision involving Barcelona and Arsenal in the Champions League final. There was like a very controversial incident that was talked about for years after that even happened. Those types of things help the Premier League, and I almost feel like there's no urgency to actually fix this, from the higher ups. And on that West Ham goal that was disallowed, man, it was kind of soft. Let's be honest. It was kind of soft. I've seen people saying that his leg was trailing and it touches the keeper and blah blah blah. But that's the thing. So it's like, are we not allowed to have contact in football anymore? Like, what are the rules? If somebody touches another player, whether it's a trailing leg or something, are we now saying that it's 100% a foul? Like I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Bowen could have maybe made more of an effort to kind of jump out of the way to try to avoid that. But keepers are
It was a mistake by Mendy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and keepers
he
are not.
pushed it into the danger zone, and he thought, "Oh, I'll just get up out of the body." That's what it was for, because he made a mistake.
Yeah, totally. It was a legitimate goal, and like you say, there was no contact, if any, minimal contact, and it was a very, very poor decision. I mean, just moving on to some of the other incidents that took place during the game, and we'll move on to kind of decisions that are possibly a little, I won't say 50-50, but maybe there is some subjectivity to it where other people's decisions are slightly differ from other ones. I know Souness, a good friend of the punditry world, Souness had said that he thought that was a foul in that, and that should have been a disallowed goal, by the way. So just to put another controversial topic thing that he said to light, but.
Well, which one was that? The United Arsenal.
The Cornet goal. He thought Bowen had committed a foul.
Yeah,
I mean, considering the type of player he was, I found that quite surprising. But anyway, the Van Dijk tackle, and then the Connor Cody, was it Connor Cody that scored? That was
I think it was
the offside. Yeah. I mean, those two decisions in itself. I mean, I'm not sure, regardless of VAR, how anybody can get those decisions wrong. I mean, what were your views initially on that tackle by Van Dijk? I watched it in slow motion and in real time, and they're just disgustingly bad. I don't think it was vindictive, but I think there was the fact that he was late. Regardless of the fact that he was late, it was still a red for me. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah, well, I don't think it was a red, and I'm not saying that out because I don't like Liverpool, but I thought it was on the shin, so I do think he got away with it. I think Cody one was a bit more. I can see why it was this allowed kind of thing, but yeah, I do think Van Dijk's was a red card.
Yeah, I'm feeling a bit weird about the Van Dijk one, because I feel like when you watch it in slow motion, and actually even when you look on Twitter at some of the freeze frames, it looks a lot worse than it actually was in real time. It was a bad challenge, but like I don't know with challenges like that because we don't see consistency. There was one, I hate to deviate from the topic, but there was one in the game against Arsenal where Bruno, I can't remember, I think it was Lukonga, I'm not sure though, somebody stepped on Bruno's calf. And that could have been like a leg breaking tackle. So that one was similar to the Van Dijk one. I think Van Dijk's one was slightly worse, but it's like those types of decisions, it seems like they get kind of ignored by the referees because of the how do I say it? The size of the occasion, right? Like because it's a big game and they want to keep the game flowing and they don't want to keep stop, start. It seems like there's almost an unwritten rule in football where you kind of just let that happen because you want the physicality of the game to go through. And I think this is an issue that has nothing to do with VAR, but it's like something that has been discussed for many years. Like, how do you officiate a big game? Because if you call every single foul, trust me, there's going to be so many red cards in derbies. Like, it would be ridiculous. You wouldn't be able to finish the game in most derbies. So many people would get sent off, whether that's second yellow or red card. So I don't know. I feel like that Van Dijk challenge, it happens a lot more than people notice because I at first didn't notice it. I only saw it when I saw the replay. Like in real time, for me, it didn't look that bad. I was like, oh, okay, nothing happened here. Keep it moving. I didn't even notice it, But it's a tough one, man.
I think it was a little bit. I mean, like John said, just to add context for anybody that is watching that isn't a Man United fan, we're not talking about any of these incidents because we want to talk ill of any other team. It was just more the situation and the incident. So just to clear that one up. But so John's 100% right. We're not trying to dig out any Liverpool incidents or anything like that. But I think it was just sloppy. It was like I say, I wasn't vindictive at all. I think it was a little bit late. And I think in those games as well, you're right, Marcus, where Van Dijk you do want to put one on an opponent, especially in a big derby game like that. So his intention probably was to put in a big tackle. He kind of missed the ball, and he still wanted to keep his foot in, and it was a bit poor.
It was a bad challenge. It was a bad.
I'll tell you what, I retweeted one from the old firm And
What is-
a proper crunching tackle. It's one of the best tackles you'll
I've
see.
seen it.
And the ball rebounded off the referee, and I was
He
like, "Now
flicked
that
him.
is a tackle."
He flicked him over the week, yeah, because Celtic, I think Celtic won 4-0, didn't they? And I saw the tackle, and it was, he flicked him, didn't he? Yeah. See, I mean, I don't know where I feel on that one, really, because, I'm always like, if you get the ball...
The thing with the Van Dijk one is that, but I do agree with Mark, is when you initially see it live, you don't think it's
it didn't.
a
Yeah,
tackle.
it just in real time, it just didn't look that bad. But like when you watch it back, then you're like, whoa.
I just think also with Van Dijk in that scenario, I almost think he's at the wrong angle kind of thing, because he's naturally left-footed, isn't he? And and he goes in with his right foot. It's like me going in with my left foot. You're perhaps in less control when you go with your weaker foot. And I think looking at Van Dijk's angle, it looks a bit wrong, and that's why I think it was more out of control, perhaps.
To tackle like that, to stamp your foot down, like it's always going to be a pretty narrow tackle. You're not opening your body up. You kind of, when somebody's coming at you and then you put a fairly narrow stamp foot down, you're very likely that you're either going to miss the ball, and if you miss the ball, you would get the man, or the man's going to go past you. So it was quite a poor. I mean, he's not been in great form, and his timing's been a little off, hasn't he, Van Dijk? But it was a poor.
I think if it was another Liverpool player, you might have seen that potentially be a booking. I feel like another thing with VAR that we don't talk about enough is the fact that there's a lot of preferential treatment. Like there's players who clearly have a reputation for being a little bit nasty, who get yellow cards, and then you see players who kind of get away with a lot. For like a good example is probably like Xhaka at Arsenal. Now I know Xhaka at Arsenal has done some things deservedly to get sent off, but there's been so many moments over the years where Xhaka does something and you can almost find a similar incident in another game that goes unpenalized. Like, it's a thing.
I think, but there are also, you want to see some, tough tackles. I mean, McTominay did a couple yesterday. There was one that I think you said about Bruno, wasn't it, Reece?
Yeah.
But, that was another tackle. So you don't mind players putting a foot in, but you don't want it to endanger the opponent. And it's a fine line, really, isn't it? So
yeah, definitely. I mean, we'll get on to the Man United incident with Odegaard and Eriksen, and I think there was a couple in the game. I mean, there was one with Bruno as well, which resulted in the Anthony goal, which I thought. So generally, I mean, we're talking kind of ill of VAR and maybe ill of referees in general. It's a tough role. I mean, it was funny because everyone's been talking about how we can improve the game. Can we see ex-professional footballers coming into the game to provide some sort of level of expertise and context to some of these decisions? But I'm not convinced. But it was funny because I was listening to a radio show today, I'm sure you're all aware of, not to plug that too much. And yeah. And really ended up listening to it, and a couple of the pros on there were saying, well, they were backtracking basically and saying, no, well, I won't want to do it. I really won't want to do it. And it's because it's not a very nice job to do, is it? Because ultimately you've got to make some pretty bad decisions. I don't know what your feelings are on that. Do you think we should be getting sort of ex-pros in there and helping these referees out in these VAR decisions?
I'm not a fan of the whole get ex-pros in. Yeah, I know a lot of fans want that, but for me personally, I don't think it's necessary. I think as long as the people who are doing the job are competent, it doesn't really matter whether you played the game or not. Now, obviously, if you're a student of the game, it's a lot better than somebody who's just coming in and being a referee who's never watched the game of football in their life, obviously. But like for me, again, I'll keep saying it, like the biggest problem for me with officiating is the fact that a lot of calls are subjective. And whenever you have that, there's never going to be consistency, because one referee might look at something in real time and say that, that's a yellow card. And then a similar incident happens in another game and they say, that referee says it's not a yellow card. And then you have fans moaning that, there's an agenda against this team versus that team, blah, blah, blah. Like that issue is always going to be there if you don't have stricter rules. One example of this you've seen, right? Like with the sort of the lunging in tackles, a lot of players don't really lunge in as much as they used to back in the old days now, especially with the studs up, because they know they're going to get sent off, even if they didn't mean to deliberately hurt the player. You very rarely see two-footed lunges in the modern game anymore, and I'm sure, like, I've seen the clips on Twitter, but I'm sure you guys have seen them as well, of like old games where it was United versus Arsenal or a big game back in the day, and within the first 10 minutes you could already count many instances where they would have got a red card if it was today, right?
Yeah.
So I think there has been a change in some rules, but it's not enough. And I'm not the type of person who wants to see football become a sport where every single foul is given. I think you do need a bit of physicality. You do need a bit of you do need a bit of license to let things go as a referee. But at the same time, it's like there has to be consistency. And I feel like with the Van Dijk incident on Conor Cody, with the Lukonga one on Bruno, like you can't be doing that and getting away with it. At least a warning or something needs to be, in question. And the thing is, like, we give referees a hard time, but like, again, the people in VAR should be calling that back and saying, hey, go back and, talk about this incident or something like that. I feel like that's not being done enough, because the whole point of VAR is to see what the referee is missing, right? And kind of give a call based on what the referee hasn't done correctly. And I feel like that doesn't get done enough, personally.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's a really good point about the X Pro one, by the way, Max, which I didn't really actually think of myself, which is, I suppose it's quite an obvious one, but it's got quite a deep lining, well, I say meaning, but probably a lot of connection in terms of the loyalties in lining some of these X Pros, because obviously a lot of them have played for lots of different teams and they'll have lots of different connections outside of the teams that they've played for. But you're right, in terms of, you don't want certain ex-pros playing or refereeing, certain matches. And I suppose, how do you kind of vet that to a degree? It's pretty difficult to make sure that you've got everybody kind of vetted to a loyalty aspect and a barometer and stuff like that. So no, I totally get that, and it'd be difficult to do. And I think they won't get a lot of willing candidates, if I'm brutally honest.
I mean, it's not a nice job.
No, go on, John. Sorry, mate.
I think when it comes to ex-players, I think the problem with that is how many ex-players actually know what the rules are. That's the problem. And I just think, you can say, referees don't understand it from a player point of view. And obviously there are big issues in terms of officiates, all that. But when it comes down to knowing the rules of football, it's the officials who know them better than anyone. And I think what you need to do is, for VAR to work, is you got to have officials or people in there who know the rules back to front, almost, and I think because, and this is a problem with some officials, even they might not know all the rules, and basically, and that's why you need people in the VAR, where's the VAR place? The park.
Oh God, it's like a remote location, isn't it? But just Jarvis agreeing with you here, John. Really, Mike Dean, John Moss, Martin Atkinson retired last season. There's a lot of experience going from the game as well, which is not helping, is it?
No, I just think you need people in there who actually know the rules, and because. And I think, like Marcus said, some things are subjective, like contacts, whether it should be a penalty or not. The handball is probably the most subjective one going.
Yeah.
That's a good point, the offside rule, it's just, and this is why you need people in there. And I think that's what the FA and the Premier League need to do to improve the standard of officiating. You need to have people in there who understand the rules and to help the referee, because there's that many rules, you can't possibly know all the rules, but you need people in there who do know the rules and say, you might want to take a look at this according to the rule book. This might be a foul, this might be a penalty, this might be offside, and then go to the ref and then allow him to make the call himself. And I do think, actually, when it came to the Eriksen decision, I'm wondering whether the reason he got asked to go was after everything that happened on the Saturday. There's possibly an argument to suggest that maybe if the game was on the Saturday, that goal might have stood, but maybe because of the backlash that happened on the Saturday, the VAR people were maybe like, oh, we've had a backlash. You might want to take a look at this, and make your own decision, possibly. And I think that's why he made the decision to give the foul. So I do think eventually you do need to address that balance and get people in there who do know the rules.
Definitely.
I think.
Sorry,
I was
go
going
on.
to say. Yeah, I was going to say, sorry. Like, I think also another big reason why that happened, it's two things really. One, it was because the United players swarmed the referee. I don't think if Bruno didn't swarm the referee and along with like a handful of other United players, I don't think they look at that again. And another thing also, like back to the favoritism thing, I think if Bruno was the one who got fouled, I don't think that's given a. I think they probably assume he's just diving. I think because it's Eriksen, the referee knows like Eriksen doesn't really have a reputation for that. And I know that might sound silly to some people, but I'm telling you, man, it's a thing. Like, just look at the stuff that Harry Kane gets away with as an example.
So
it's completely unrelated.
It adds to the subjectivity then, doesn't it? Even more so because, like you said there, and as well, I suppose, does the role of captain become even more important? If you've got a vocal captain who's going to jump right on those things when he identifies an issue, a possible offside, when he identifies a foul that the referee didn't see, and straight away the captain, in this scenario, Bruno was straight over to the referee and sort of saying, look, you've got to check that out. You've got to have a look at that. Has that been enough, or do we suspect? I mean, this is kind of where the miking up possibly of referees comes in. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that because I think there's enough targeting referees these days that I don't know if I 100% agree with it. I'm not totally against it, but I'm a bit like it's the rugby game's got it right, and I don't know if football would work in the same way. But
didn't they say something a few weeks ago that regarding they might pursue after the game's finished any transcripts between the referee and the VAR official regarding some decisions that they might publish it after a game or something. I heard something about that the other week. I'm not sure if that's occurred yet, but I think it was going to be discussed.
I'm not sure I'm not sure what people would get out of it. Really, I don't know if you guys disagree with that, but I'm not sure if. I mean, I know managers get very angry, fans get very angry. We would have been very angry if that foul wouldn't have taken place and Martinelli's goal would have stood. But seeing a transcript after the game, would it really satisfy anybody? I don't know. I think it just wind people up even more. So,
I mean, I suppose it'll be helpful in the context. You can see why they came to the decision, kind of thing. So, and then, you might say, oh, well, it was the wrong decision, that kind of thing. But at least you can say, right, well, they looked at it, and even if they made the wrong decision, you can see why they came to the decision, kind of thing, possibly.
That's the thing for me. Like, what I would like to just know is just to get clarity on what the conversations are. That's it. Like, I don't think a transcript will fix anything. I'm pretty sure football fans will still moan and everything, but I think a lot of us would love the clarity because I feel like the biggest issue with VAR is the lack of transparency. People just want an explanation on why was this foul given, why was that foul not given, because we don't have context at the moment. I mean, I hate to go back in time, but like I think it was 2 weeks ago when Spurs played Chelsea and Mark Cucurella's hair gets pulled, and it's like, dude, like that's so obvious. Now maybe most of us didn't see it when the game was happening, and maybe I think it was Anthony Taylor who was the referee at the time. I might be getting that wrong, but I don't think he saw it either, which is fair enough. There's a lot going on when there's a corner, but VAR, it's meant to be a video review system. Why was it not used in that particular case? And then later on in that game, it gets used for something completely unrelated and something a lot softer. And it's like there's just no consistency. So I feel like even though it might not fix everything, a transcript would definitely give people more context and clarity, because then at least we know why they came to that decision, or at least what the conversation was. Like, it would have been nice to know what the referee said in between, plays as to why he didn't go back and review that, So that's it for me.
Yeah, just in terms of we'll come to the United decision then, and then there's a couple of other events that happened over the weekend that I want to discuss. I mean, a couple of decent goals really, the Brighton one and the Villa one really, where they were sort of cancelled out. Maybe the Villa one was not less cancelled out, but the decision was probably made a little early to blow the whistle. But we'll come to the Man United one. Obviously, the Eriksen decision. But I thought generally the referee had a good game. I think we don't speak about referees having good games enough when they have good games. I think we're quite easy as fans, and I'm not going to tarnish all fans with the same brush, but I think we're pretty guilty as fans to jump down decisions and jump down referees' necks when they've had a bad game. But equally, I thought he had a good game yesterday. And obviously, as Marcus already alluded to earlier on, these are high-profile games where there's a lot going on, big tackles, big moments. I generally got it right. Yeah, there was a VAR decision. Personally, I thought it was right. Obviously, we're slightly biased, maybe quite a bit biased, but I felt like it was the right decision. And there was a couple of other situations where he didn't blow early. Like I said, the Anthony goal earlier on, Johnny, he let the game play, didn't he? So I think generally he had a good game yesterday. Do you sort of agree with that?
Yeah, I think he overall had a good game. I think Ericsson, obviously, the disallowed goal, I mean, he should have really given it straight away, possibly.
Yeah.
But I think other than that, I think he did have a good game. I think, like you mentioned, the first goal allowing us to have the advantage when Bruno was fouled. It was very good play from him, and also I think it was also good to see him, not just the referee, but also when it came to the lines people, because the second and third goals, they were very close to, being offside kind of thing. And in fairness to the linesman, he didn't put his flag up kind of thing. So I think overall the officials did have a good game. I think it was, we talk about VAR, but actually I thought yesterday was a really good game to watch from a neutral's perspective. There was Arsenal played pretty well from my perspective, and I think they was under pressure, particularly first 15, 20 minutes, second half, and I think after we went 2-1 up, I think we were the best team from then. So, but I think the referee did have a good game yesterday, and I think it was a very good match overall.
No, yeah, definitely, mate. Marcus, just come on to you on that. I mean, I think in terms of reaction to the game as well, we did do have a chat to. We did have a chat yesterday. The final kind of word yesterday on YouTube at 10 o'clock with the boys there, and with Stu were hosting, and we did chat about the result and everything else. But there's only so much you could talk about in an hour, and especially when a good result like that. So, what was your general feelings of the game? Obviously, like I say, the decisions that were made, I felt like the ref and the VAR decision was correct. And I think generally, how do you feel like we performed, mate, overall?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with the decision, then talk about the performance. In terms of the refereeing decisions, listen, I thought it was 50-50 yesterday, as in, like, I don't think it was unfair to either side. And I know Arsenal fans weren't like that, but if you actually go back and watch some of the clips on the game, I mean, I'm sure you'll find them somewhere on Twitter as well. There's been a few clips shared of Martinez and Jesus, like, going back and forth. And there's a part where Jesus actually kicks Martinez. And like that's like, according to the rules, that's a straight red. Now, I'm not saying Jesus should have actually been sent off, because I don't think it was that bad, but like, you can't just kick someone. And the context behind it, for anybody who doesn't remember it happening, because I didn't see it either, I saw it via Twitter, is they were basically having a bit of a scrap and the ball had already gone out of play. And then Jesus is on the floor and he basically just gives him a little nudge in the back of the foot with his studs up. So there was many instances like that. I mean, McTominay basically wrestling Jesus down on the ground, and nothing really was made of that. So there was a lot of decisions he could have given either way, but I'm happy he let the game flow. And honestly, in terms of the performance, probably, I mean this sincerely, like, if you take off your rose-tinted glasses for both sides, that from a neutral point of view, that was an amazing game. It genuinely was. Like, I don't think people are giving it enough credit. I think it was a proper throwback between Arsenal and Manchester United. You've got an Arsenal team that's 5 games unbeaten on the bounce, coming up against a Manchester United team that's 3 games unbeaten on the bounce, but nobody's really sure if they're quite good enough yet because they haven't had a good test. And I mean, apart from Liverpool, obviously, but we know Liverpool aren't that good. And to put in a performance that we did, it is amazing. And the thing is, like, I personally said that Arsenal was the better team in terms of performance, but the key difference, and if you look at even the stats, like, the stats don't lie, Manchester United created the higher quality chances as well. Like, we deserve to win that game. You know, I think I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans moaning like Manchester United pulled off a smash and grab. It wasn't a smash and grab. Like Arsenal played well, but we also did. You know, we played well enough to win that game. You know, so it was a fantastic game overall, man. And the referee, I feel like people need to chill because I feel like of all the games of the weekend, our one was the least most controversial, personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think on the whole, I think it was a good result and it was a fair result in the end. You know, not taking anything away from Arsenal, they had the majority of the ball and they used it well in certain areas, but in terms of where they needed to use it more efficiently was in and around the box, and they didn't score enough goals. They didn't look like scoring goals. They didn't look like troubling De Gea enough, and that's ultimately what it boiled down to. You know, are we playing tactics similar to what we were used to maybe two and a bit years ago under Ollie, where we're getting the best out of Rashford on a counter-attacking style, possibly. But I think tonight's still, as he said in his press conference after the game, this is a long process. You know, he's definitely not put his style into this team yet. He's far from doing that. And we'll gradually see snippets of it. I think in the first 10, 15 minutes, we saw a Ten Hag style where we used the ball cleverly. We got Sancho involved. We got Anthony involved quite regularly on either side. It's seeing that more often and dominating and controlling the midfield and dominating and controlling it in the final third. It slipped away. Did it slip away after the controversial sort of goal and the VAR decision? For some reason, yeah, possibly. I don't know why that deflated us so much, but I think on the whole, it was a fairer result. I think we dug in there, we kept them at bay, and we scored when it mattered. So I think you're right, Marcus.
I think also another big thing is like I think Arteta made a huge mistake. I think before Arteta made his subs, I don't know who he took off. I think he took off Odegaard for Smith Rowe, and then I think he also took off. I don't know if he took off Jesus or one of the other attackers for Nketiah, but
he took 3 off.
Yeah, I think
made it 3-1 a minute later or something.
Yeah,
he brought who else did it? Oh, he brought the left back off, didn't he? Zinchenko.
Yeah, but by the way, big up to Neil in the chat.
Yeah, just say Neil there. Sorry, mate. Go on, Marcus. Sorry.
But yeah, I was gonna say I think Arteta made a huge mistake in that second half because before those 3 substitutions, I thought Arsenal were going to score. Like they were absolutely dominating that game and they were controlling that game. But I think he just got outwitted by Ten Hag because in that second half, we absolutely ran away with it. As soon as he made changes to the midfield, I thought Arsenal lost that game because Odegaard, I thought, was having a decent performance. And then to take off Jesus, who was probably their man of the match, makes absolutely no sense at all. And I think Arteta just got a little bit too complacent. I think Arsenal sitting at the top of the league, everything's nice, everything's rosy. They thought they could just come to Old Trafford, you know, put in a good performance and get away with it. And he got taught lessons in that second half. It's not over until it's over. And I think also on the point about people saying Manchester United doesn't look that different under Ollie, I feel like people are just being lazy with their analysis. I'm not going to lie. Because yes, the performance wasn't that great. Yes, we did score off of a counter attack, but there were lots of periods in that game where we created chances and we genuinely like built up as a team. There was like 12, 15 passes strung together before we actually got the ball into the final third. You know, even in the first half, there were moments where Manchester United were actually like playing football. Like in the opening 15 minutes, I remember like one of the few things I remember about Sancho, even though he ghosted for most of the game, was like there was a moment with him and Eriksen where they were interplaying so like nicely outside the Arsenal box. We were just controlling the ball. We were just recycling possession across Arsenal's box, you know? So I feel like people are you know, they're having a bit of I don't know what the terminology is, but I guess recency bias is I don't even know if that's the right word, but yeah, people are just kind of taking the little, you know, noticeable things and saying, oh, it's the same as Ollie just because we scored on the counter. And they're not looking at the whole game and the whole performance. You know what I mean?
I think, I mean, that wasn't a criticism by myself, by the way. When I said that, it's just mainly I'm looking at that and thinking, of course, we're going to play similarly. We've got very similar players still there. And I think it'd be naive to think that we're just going to suddenly turn it around and become a no,
I wasn't talking about you specifically. I just meant fans in general because you know there's fans on Twitter saying like it's a carbon copy of Ollie. It's like no, it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, like Rashford, you're 100% right about Rashford playing on the counter and using his pace. Like we know that, but there were so many little other details that people aren't paying attention to. I mean, the best examples are defense. You know what I mean? Like our defense looks nothing like it did under Ollie. You know what I mean? So I think I agree with your points. I was just talking about the overreaction on Twitter, and the kind of like oversimplified. Oh, it's just basically Oli 2.0. Ten Hag's just a puppet, bro. Nothing's changed. It's like, bro, there's been a few improvements. You know what I mean?
He's transformed. You can see what he's trying to do. I think there was a similar. We're going to have to put these sort of performances in for now until we get to a point of view where we get more personnel in him, and he gets a chance to sort of really instill what he's wanting to do with the team. But it was a very similar performance to the City game that we played. If you remember McTominay scoring that sort of last rush, 25-yard strike, and he had an unbelievable game. And it was a similar sort of style. It was a couple of years ago now, wasn't it? I think we won 3-1 in that particular game, and it was just I think what's more encouraging for me and what Ten Hag's done most of all is he's got confidence back in these players. That's huge. That's just massive. They were so deflated, and he's done that. I was looking at the bench as well, and everyone was sort of criticising, this first selection. Oh, Casemiro should have been starting. I was one of them. I thought Casemiro should have started.
Yeah,
that's not to say that afterwards, like he got it wrong. I thought he got it right. To be fair, he's picked his side. He's gone with a winning team, and he's still winning. So fair play to the manager for doing that. But you look at that bench, and it was like it looked strong, and that's kind of where we haven't been in that position for such a long time. Where you can bring a Casemiro and you can bring a Ronaldo on. Fred came on and did. I thought the confidence he showed in terms of not having that pressure to start every game and have all this weight on his shoulders. He came on and he was really good. Like I thought he was really, really good. And it's great to be in that position. John, sorry, mate. I don't know what your general feelings on all that.
Oh yeah, I do agree with everything. I think the Eriksen, it's interesting. I was at a barbecue weekend before last, and I was with a Watford fan. We were talking about who's better, United or Arsenal. And he was we're having the debate about Odegaard and Eriksen. And he was like, oh, Odegaard's better. I was like, no, Eriksen. And anyway, so I was like, well, we're playing them next week, so we'll see how they do. And Odegaard played well, but Eriksen was better, wasn't he? So I'll so I won that. But I think obviously Eriksen was absolutely phenomenal. And I do think, you look at certain players and you speak about the team spirit. I think that's been the biggest change. It comes through winning, but I think there's a togetherness when the defence in particular looks solid, and you look at it and you think even when we're under pressure, you have faith that we can see it out, kind of thing. And I think that's the big difference. Even players like not big fans of, I'm still have question marks of them, but players like Delo, for example, he's looking a little bit more solid. Now, players like McTominay have played very well, the last 4 games. And I think, obviously, we speak about Martinez and all that, but I honestly said Eriksen for me is the signing of the summer. And I think yesterday he showed his class. He played integral part, I think, certainly with 2, but possibly 3 of the goals. Was it Eriksen who played it through to Bruno for Rashford?
Yeah. Funnily enough, I actually think all 3 of our goals, well, 2 of them anyways, were carbon copies of each other, because it was Eriksen who played the ball to Bruno, and then Bruno who played it forward. That's another sign of things improving under Ten Hag.
Which is funny, because I think I've seen some tweets saying that, I think it was a Danny Murphy quote, saying that them 2 can't play together in the midfield, which I think is just...
Yeah, you know what it is with Eriksen and Bruno. So I made a video also talking about this very topic, and for me, it's not that they can't play together. For me, it's more question, because we know they can play together now, but for me, it's more question, do they get the best out of each other? Because I'm looking at that performance yesterday, and it was amazing. Don't get me wrong. Bruno and Eriksen can play together, but I'm thinking, imagine if Eriksen was the more advanced one, and we had Casemiro and then someone else in the team. Now, obviously, I wouldn't want to see Bruno get dropped after yesterday's performance, but I'm just saying, hypothetically, if you had Eriksen playing more advanced, I think you get a better version of Christian Eriksen, because I feel like him having to do so much defensive work is holding him back. And I feel like now we don't notice it, but when the season goes on and the games come thick and fast, you're going to see the fitness drop and the levels kind of drop. And I just look at it and I think to myself, maybe, just maybe, they're not getting the best out of each other. But, after yesterday's performance, it's hard to judge, because it doesn't get any better than that, going forward, obviously. The goals we scored, I don't remember a game where we scored 2 or 3 goals and they all looked almost identical. Like that's very rare, you know. And when people talk about patterns of play, that's it right there. Like when you see similar things happen over and over again, you know that it's clearly something they've been working on the training ground.
I think it's helpful, like because you just see Eriksen's the balls he put like the ball for the first goal. Where you passed it to Bruno, he took 3 Arsenal players out. He just had that for me was the pass of the match. You know, just that to completely them out. And obviously Bruno's through ball for Rashford. I think it's just for that, it was just about getting the right pace on the ball, you know, so that Rashford was in, but it wasn't too close to the keeper kind of thing. And I do think, and that's a thing with Eriksen would play those balls and he was in a more advanced position. So it's so that's the probably the difficulty in the balance which Ten Hag will have to strike during the whole season kind of thing. But I just think I think Eriksen's probably the only player capable of playing those kind of balls.
No, that's a good point
as well. Maybe can Casemiro do? But it's too early to say.
I feel like Casemiro can't do it at the same level as Eriksen.
Yeah,
like he can do it, but not as consistently. Because when he came on, not specifically yesterday, but I think it was against Leicester when he came on, he made a mistake. And I thought like a lot of people blame Maguire for it. But if you actually go watch back the clip, like Casemiro is the one who loses the ball. And then him and Martinez both are unable to recover. And then Maguire has to come across and then basically make a mistake. So it's interesting with Casemiro. I don't know if it's a fitness issue or what's going on, but I am starting to question, which is crazy, by the way. Like we're questioning whether or not Casemiro fits into our team. That's a crazy thing to say. You know, can Casemiro?
I think it boils down to the fact that that right wing position. Because if we compare it to like the Anthony one, which was I was talking to maybe Ben about this actually offline, and in terms of the Casemiro thing is weird because the lineup was announced on Sunday and it was like, wow, Casemiro's still not in this lineup. I thought like 2 games in, he'd get his fitness, he'd be training for a week or 2, then he'd be in. But then I think he was pretty solid. I mean, the team has been winning up until that point. We got 3 wins in the bounce, and the midfield I think he was pretty happy with. I think his only kind of doubt was that right wing position, and I think when he got Anthony in. Anthony was fit. He was like, no, he's definitely playing. I don't think he was convinced with Elanga, and obviously was keen on Sancho playing on the other side and Rashford down the middle. So I think that was the only thing that kind of was a kind of a thorn in his side. Whereas I think he was pretty comfortable in the midfield because it was doing well. So as much as I was a bit surprised, but I think it was more down to the fact that I'm not changing this winning team. I think he's quite old school in that sense as well. I mean, the fact that Rashford's come to Ten Hag and said, look, I want to play down the middle, and he's gone, all right, I'll give you a chance. Go on then, show us what you can do. I think that's quite good as a manager, isn't it? Just giving people a chance.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what John thinks, but for me, I think that's part of it. But I think also another thing that people aren't talking about enough is, like, remember Ten Hag didn't want Casemiro. Like, I'm not saying he's not happy with Casemiro. I mean, if you can't get your number one target and the board comes to you and knocks on your office door and says, hey, we can't get you Frankie de Jong, but we can get you this guy who's won 5 Champions Leagues, you're probably not going to be too upset. But I don't think he wanted Casemiro realistically. And I think if you look at the profile of player he was looking for, like not Donny van de Beek, Frankie de Jong, he's completely different to Casemiro. So I feel like with Casemiro, he's still trying to figure out a way to bring him into the team without disrupting what he has in that midfield. Whereas with Anthony, he knows exactly what he's getting with Anthony. And actually, like, I saw someone like on Twitter responding to my my tweet saying, like, why would you put Sancho on the left, or why are you happy with seeing Sancho on the left? And I was trying to explain to him that when Anthony gets here, he's going to go straight into that team, because Sancho moving to the left is an indication that he's preparing for Anthony coming in on that right-hand side. And so it came to pass, because we even saw Elanga move out to the right for his final game, and that made no sense. But when you actually think about it, it was like, yeah, so I'm going to move Sancho to the left, and then because Anthony's not here yet, Elanga will play there for now, and then as soon as Anthony gets here, he'll go straight in. Like, I was surprised when Anthony starts, but it makes sense now, like in hindsight. And I think with Casemiro, it's different because he hasn't played with Casemiro. He doesn't know if Casemiro is going to fit his system yet. And if you look at the profiles, it's just not the same. But that's my 2 cents on it.
I don't want to say that he's another Schweinsteiger, but hopefully he's come to carry on winning things. I totally think he's there to do that. I think he's there. He's still got a massive appetite to come.
Yeah,
and,
he'll play eventually.
I think Ten Hag said in his pre-match, he's like, Anthony gives us an option on the right wing, even though he's probably would have only done 2 training sessions, wouldn't he? And because he knows what, like Mark said, he knows what it's offers. But interesting what he said about Casemiro, he's like he still needs to get used to the pace of the league, which is and I agree with Marcus. It clearly wasn't his first choice. De Jong was his first choice, and in my opinion, even though they're good signings, Casemiro and Anthony, I think it had a lot to do with losing the first 2 games and the fans being angry at the owners. I just think that was the reason we signed both those players. But I think, you can see clearly Anthony suits that area, because that's the one area where there was a weak link, even though we were beating Liverpool, Leicester and Southampton, because Lang is a decent squad player, but he's not a starter. And as soon as he got Anthony, he's going straight in my team, and I think that's the reason he did it.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's pretty much there or thereabouts. I think he was with his team now, isn't he? I think what's quite nice to see, and we don't talk about him as much as we were last season anyway. But I thought Ronaldo looked sharp when he came on, and I think there was some clips of his pressing, and which resulted, I think, in the second goal. They created the mistake for the second goal. Yeah, he created a mistake for what almost was Bruno goal, where Ramsdale pulled off a decent sort of save, suspected the chip and pulled it off. So he's looking sharp, isn't he? And I think his inclusion there allowed Marcus Rashford to sail in from the left a little bit as well and find that space. So, is Ten Hag sort of getting through to Ronaldo a little bit? Not to say that he wasn't in the first place, but obviously in terms of speculation and everything towards the back end of this transfer window, is he do we feel like he's fully on board with this now then till the end of the season? What do you guys think on the Ronaldo situation?
John can go first on this one.
Thank you. Well, he doesn't have a choice, does he? Because he's not moved.
No, I suppose
moved, does he? But I do think his body language. I mean, when we've been saying time where he hasn't pulled his fans, he's been kicking out when he hasn't got the ball. Now, I do actually think Ronaldo's attitude when he came on was actually spot on. I thought, I do think he was on the impact goal show. I think even as good as Ronaldo is, I'm sure he's disappointed he's not starting games at the moment, but looking at the wider picture, we are winning games and we are playing like a team. And I think that even Ronaldo, I'm sure even though he's disappointed he's not playing, he can buy into a team that's winning, most games and that. And I do think game by game, I think the Southampton game, I thought he wasn't, there was that runway was through on goal and the Southampton defender caught up with him. I was a bit like, oh gosh, he's not this aim. But I thought against Leicester he did a decent job when he came on. I think yesterday, like you say, he did actually do pressing yesterday. Like you say, it led to error for the second goal. It almost led to Bruno scoring, and even he had the ball for the third goal because he attracted some of the defenders to him. He passed it. Was it Dalot fed in Eriksen? I can't remember now. But it was Ronaldo who took defenders away. Passes Dalot, and Dalot just played the through ball for Eriksen's run onto. So even though he's not scored yet this season, he is having an active role now yesterday in terms of goals being scored, even though he didn't directly get the goal or the assist.
Yeah, totally. Go on, sorry, Marcus.
No worries. But there was even that chance where on the counter, I think it was Fred. Now, I personally, unpopular opinion, I think that was a hard pass for Fred to make, because when you actually look at the angle, like the Ramsdale was already coming out anyways. But
I just on that, Mark, I don't think he was annoyed at Fred. I think he was just frustrated that he didn't get to it.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. I saw a lot of people saying he's mad at Fred. I don't think he was mad at Fred at all. I honestly thought that was a difficult pass. And I think the thing about Ronaldo is people need to understand that this guy, he has an elite level mindset. All he cares about is winning. So I think people read too much into his body language. Like, it's not that deep. He just wants to score goals and he just wants to be playing for Manchester United. Yes, he'll be happy at the wider picture that we're doing well, but deep down inside, he'll want to be involved. And that's just the type of person he is. And I think you can see that translated into his effort when he comes on. Now, I'm not sold on Ronaldo pressing across the 90 minutes because I don't think he has the legs. But if he's coming on at the end of games when people are tired, when people are switched off, when the concentration levels are low, especially against a team like Arsenal, he can be a very useful player. But it almost feels strange to say that Cristiano Ronaldo can be a useful player coming off of the bench in 2022. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a strange conversation to have. But I honestly think if Ten Hag wants to get the best out of Ronaldo, it would be using him off the bench towards the end of games and maybe starting him in Europa League games, maybe starting him in cup games. But in terms of starting games from the beginning, I don't know about that. Plus, I don't think either Rashford or Ronaldo would be starting if Martial was fit. Like, that's another curveball. I think Martial was on course to be like one of our most important players, not just based on the preseason, but just looking at his profile and what he brings to the team. I think he fits Erik ten Hag's system better than any forward we have. But then obviously because of him getting injured, he's now had to put in Rashford basically and try to figure out a way to play with him. So I don't know. It's a weird one with Ronaldo. It's a weird one. And what makes it even more odd is how positive he was about Ronaldo in press conferences leading up to this season. He was talking about Ronaldo being a part of his plans and being very protective of Ronaldo, only for him to put him on the bench for Marcus Rashford. That's very odd. Ten Hag is a guy who likes playing his cards close to his chest, as I've been saying for weeks. So it will be interesting to see what he does over the next few weeks. I mean, and also just to defend Rashford, I mean, I don't think he was that great against Leicester. Neil's not going to like this. He might click off the stream now. I don't think he was that great against Leicester, and I don't think he was that great against. I can't remember if he started against Southampton, but yesterday I thought he was good. Yesterday I thought across the 90 minutes, especially in the second half, he was good, right? And if Rashford continues to be involved in goals, whether that's via assists or creating chances, or alternatively scoring them, you can't take him off the team. You know what I mean? So it's one of those weird situations where, you got to reward players for playing well at the moment, So I don't think it would be right to just bring Ronaldo in, even though I was also shocked that Ronaldo didn't start. But Rashford backed it up.
I totally agree with you. I think it's one of the reasons why Ten Hag's started off on. I know he's obviously had two games that weren't necessarily on the right foot, but I think from that's kind of why things have gone in the right direction for Ten Hag, because he's made big calls and made big decisions, and he's moving forward with it, isn't he? I think it's a shame, because I'm just going to come on to something just to round off the hour, actually, where we're going to have a look at and I don't know if it's an amateur game, it's a semi-pro game. We're going to try and do a bit of a VAR decision on this one. I think it's a pretty straightforward one. I don't know if John's going to be back in on the show. We'll wait for him. Just in terms of what Jarvis is. Yeah, John's just disappeared on me. Jarvis has just sort of said there, and kind of agreed. Ronaldo has obviously still got an ability to score 15 to 20 goals if he puts his mind to it. I think there's still a lot of games left to play in this season. I know not necessarily the Premier League, obviously it's only just started, but I mean generally cup games, Europa League this week, likely to start.
Can I also just say, this point about Ronaldo scoring goals? Listen, I agree that he was our best player last season, and I agree that his goals could be very valuable to the team, but people need to stop acting like this team isn't capable of scoring goals. You know what I mean? Like, those seasons under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, as much as people want to call them flukes, one thing they all have in common is that Rashford, obviously the guy who we won't talk about who's not playing for our club anymore, and Martial were all scoring. That front three was all scoring. MG11, Marcus Rashford, and Martial were all doing well in the Ollie. So this team has goals in it. It's not to mention Bruno Fernandes. Ever since Ronaldo has been dropped, I think Bruno has been more involved in the attack. Now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing overall, I don't know. But the point I'm trying to make is we have goals in this team. People need to stop acting like, without Ronaldo, it's all doom and gloom. We're incapable of scoring goals against good teams. It's nonsense, man. It's just a question of, are we better with Ronaldo or without Ronaldo? And that doesn't just come down to goals. It's other things as well, because I think, when the going gets tough, you need someone like Ronaldo in the team to keep everybody motivated and to keep the standards up.
Definitely 100%. Right, we're gonna move on slightly because we're nearly to an hour, so we're gonna have a little look at this amateur game, and then we'll all make a decision on it. I'm sure we'll come to the right decision here, and I'm sure we'll all come to the same one. Hopefully that is the right one. If we all come to the same decision, it's the wrong one, then I'd be very concerned considering this game. So we'll have a quick look at this. A quick look at this and see what you all think. Is it flashing for you guys? Let's see if it plays all right.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
It's
plays all right. There we go. Offside. I don't know. Right. I mean, we'll play it again. See what you guys think. Was this an offside? We'll go to VAR here and see what you guys think.
In the AF for the women's channel,
that's not offside.
And, I think it was a little bit of tongue in cheek on this one. It was I think Turton FC. So shout out to Turton FC if you watch this back. But we'll play it again. Sorry, John. Do you want to explain that one?
No, I was saying that on the women's channel we have WhatsApp group, and Matt Crane, who's a contributor, he's a coach now. We were joking that he became an official for one of the games recently. And it's was it you who gave that?
He was about 5 yards in his own half. I don't know. He'd managed to put his flag up there. Never mind, the defenders were stood about 10 yards away as well. So. Yeah, pretty bad one. It's not for everybody, is it? Refereeing, I think, and that's pretty much the subjective of what we've come to today. But
I think being a linesman is incredibly hard. You know, I'm amazed at how accurate they are sometimes, because imagine having to make those calls in real time.
Well, you think, and this is about praising when you think of both of Rashford's goals, when it's a crossover, like when the defender's pushed on, the striker's running through. You know, imagine how tight it is, and you've got to get it spot on, kind of thing. So.
Yeah, you got to watch you got to watch the runner, and then you've also got to look at when the ball is being released as well, which takes an incredible amount of skill, and you've got to keep up with the defensive line as well, because you're always running up and down to make sure that you're in the right, like, sort of you're at the right angle to judge it. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, these days there's no danger because they can just they can just put the flag up and go to VAR. So
that's true. And then if his toe is slightly offside, then they disallow the goal.
Yeah. And then a screenshot straight to the linesman who got it wrong. No, look, guys, it's been an interesting hour, and I think how we've managed to claw an hour out of VAR, I'll never know, but hopefully it'll be a distant memory for us all. We don't have to talk about another one this weekend. Hopefully not. Palace. What was it? Sociedad on Thursday. And then Palace on Sunday. So, what's your general feelings on that as a kind of last word, Marcus? Are we optimistic? We get obviously there'll be some rotation for the Sociedad game. I'm pretty much expecting that, albeit it's probably the toughest of the group games that we've got in the Europe, in the group stages. But some rotation in there. Are you expecting still a fairly comfortable win?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident. I'm actually looking forward to that Palace game. The Real Sociedad game is I'm gonna struggle to stay awake. I'm not gonna lie. Like having Thursday nights occupied is a bit of a bore until the knockout stages. But hopefully we see some rotation. Hopefully we see Garnacho get a chance. Hopefully we see Elanga back in the team. Hopefully we see Ronaldo actually start. That would be nice.
Casemiro as well.
Yeah, Casemiro as well. Hopefully we see him.
Nobody's mentioned Donny yet. Donny's supposed to be his little pet.
I would maybe. I do think he'll still keep some of the first teamers in there. Like, I personally think De Gea will probably start, and I think that maybe Mars says if he's fit might start, and I think he might play. Anthony will probably play, I would have thought, and I think Bruno maybe.
Just quickly on Donny, I think he's injured at the moment. That's the only reason I didn't mention him. And I've heard a lot of people saying that Donny's career is over at Manchester United, and it probably is, but I think it's still too soon to judge. I think if we're sat here in 6 months and Donny hasn't played any games, obviously barring that period during the World Cup, then it's the writing's probably on the wall. But let's just give it a bit of time. When he gets back fit, let's see what happens in the Europa League games, because I'll be very shocked if we sell Donny van de Beek without giving him at least a significant chunk of minutes in the cup games. But on the goalkeeper thing, because Jarvis did ask for, well, I don't know if we have 3 minutes, but just briefly on De Gea, I think Dubravka should be starting in the Europa League simply because there's no point in signing a backup goalkeeper when you've got Tom Heaton on the bench and then not using them for the duration of their loan spell. Like, what are we doing? We're just paying his wages. We're basically saying, hey, Newcastle, you're not using this guy. Can we take him off the wage bill for a season and then give him back to you next season? Like, there's just no point. So I think Dubravka should be starting. Otherwise, I don't really care who else starts. Oh, also, he's got a bubble wrap Varane. You know what I mean? Put him in bubble wrap, stick him in the freezer, and then take him out for the Crystal Palace game. But until then, I hope we don't see Varane start, man, because it would be so annoying to see him get like a hamstring injury against Real Sociedad. Like, that would be so underwhelming. You know what I mean?
He's managed to play 2 games in 3 days, hasn't he?
Yeah. He looks fit. Apparently, Varane is on his own fitness program. Like he doesn't train as much with the team. He's on his own separate thing. So hopefully it works, man. But I don't want to see him start in the Europa League. But I'm confident.
Hopefully Ten Hag will get the vibe that the fan base are kind of loosely off his back. Well, not that we're on his back, but obviously there's pressure in the Premier League games, and there's no pressure coming into these European games, and he can just be a little bit more free with the selection. But hopefully and it'll be nice to, like you say, see a little bit of rotation in there. In terms of the Donny one, it's like I don't know, it's like a Space Jam thing where he's put his hand on the ball and all his talent's gone out of him. I mean,
there must be a conspiracy theory where he's always been injured and he was just making up numbers on the bench.
I mean, like, I'll keep it brief, but like on Donny, like people need to remember that no matter how much you think these guys get paid and how much fame they have, they're still humans at the end of the day. Imagine being in Donny van de Beek's shoes, right? You're at Ajax, you're this young up and coming talent. You've played in a Champions League semi-final under one of the most sought after managers, or he's not young, but young in terms of his managerial career, in Erik ten Hag. And you are linked to Real Madrid, you're linked to Barcelona, you're linked to all of these big clubs. You get your big move to Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and then you're stuck on the bench every single game. You know what I mean? Like, imagine what that does to your confidence after 3 years of just sitting on the bench. You haven't given a chance to play in the new league, in a new country, etc., etc. Like, I mean, when I look at, I don't know about you guys, but when I look at Donny's face, man, he looks defeated. He looks like a broken man. So I feel like there's something deeper going on there. And it's not something that's talked about a lot because it's not fashionable to talk about mental health when it comes to footballers, but because they get paid nicely and they drive Porsches and whatever. But I think there's something going on with Donny.
I can see, and I think that's probably why Ten Hag isn't picking. I think in an ideal world, he would want to pick him because he did play with him at Ajax. And then I just think the fact that he's not playing just maybe indicate something much more on the line, perhaps. But I do think if he can, he will try and get Van der Beek playing. He might just have to wait his turn, but I think eventually he might try and get him playing football regularly.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think we all hope so in a certain sort of way, because we don't think we've even really seen enough of him to sort of really judge his ability and judge his talent. Maybe some of the fans will disagree with that, but I personally feel like there's more to come from him. But maybe we'll see. Maybe Ten Hag's just thinking, look, I need to get over the line. I need to go with a team that's going to get me wins initially, and then I can start sort of playing around with it a little bit and adapting it. But let's see. But a couple of games this week, so plenty to get looking forward to, I suppose, guys. It's 2 games in a week. It's we're back to it. Okay, it's not Champions League football, but at least it's football and watching Man United. So that's always good in my book. So thank you to the guys that have been watching. There's not been that many tonight. I appreciate we've had a few people drop out, but thankfully Marcus and John have really helped me out as well. So a big thanks to Marcus and Bob and to John for helping me out tonight. And we'll catch you in the next one, which I think is on Wednesday as we preview the show for the Thursday game. I think we're going to do a sort of pre-recorded preview for the Sunday match on Friday, so look out for that as well, which is obviously, like I say, I think we've got a few sort of games coming up sort of within a 4-day window, so we'll probably have a few of those sort of preview shows on a Friday, so we'll see how we get on. But cheers. Go on, John.
Just shout out women's channel. United Women are making a playing their first game of the season away at Tottenham. He'll be at, I think it's 12 or 12:30 on Saturday, and it's on Sky Sports, and there'll be plenty of shows on that channel as well. If you're intrigued by the Women's Euros, you can follow United, can't you?
Of course, they've had a busy schedule, haven't they, of late as well? The women they obviously played yesterday. They played yesterday with Austria yesterday.
I think it was postponed, I think.
Was it? I thought it went ahead.
Yeah, right. I think we were meant. Oh, sorry, the England. Sorry, I thought it meant.
Yeah, sorry, the England.
There would be. Yeah, we're qualified for the World Cup next year. And yeah, Russo and Paris United girls got both the goals, and we got a friendly tomorrow. Now I can't remember who it's against, but yeah, we're through to the World Cup.
Real. Well, hopefully they can bring it home because the men need to smarten up the game, don't they? So. Yeah. Right, guys. Appreciate that, and we'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Okay.